1, 2, 3, let's go.
Wednesday afternoon, hoping you will tune into our show.
If you see, perhaps not so much nowadays, but if it used to be the case perhaps a few years ago, that if you saw someone covered in tattoos, for example, especially on their face or whatever, that certainly gives an impression. I don't really want to say a negative impression because it's so commonplace now that not so much on the face, but a lot of people have tattoos, and some of them a lot of tattoos, and I think it's probably silly to make a judgment in any way on that as an impression. But what I'm saying is, yeah, the visuals you got with those earrings and piercings gave you a certain impression, which subsequently was changed because you got to know the guy and you thought, yeah, he's not quite as I imagined him to be, which is good because it shows that whatever impressions people do give about themselves through what they say, how they dress, etc., may not always be immediately accurate. But I think the point, going back to the idea of someone we haven't met before, apparently research over the last few years kind of keeps shortening the amount of time it takes us as humans to make a solid impression of somebody. It was up until probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, research showed that within the first 7 seconds of meeting somebody, we have formed a pretty solid impression of them. And that would certainly, with your earrings, man, it will come within that. But really subsequent to that, even more recently, and there's a lot of research in this area, and psychology and so on, suggests that really within a second or two, we have formed a pretty solid opinion of a particular person within a second or two. So that must essentially be on the visuals that we see, the feeling we get. But interestingly, and you touched on someone's voice, I think somewhere that you said, when we hear somebody speak, we see them and then they immediately speak. Within, it sounds ridiculous, within 500 milliseconds, which is a small fraction of a second, we have formed a very firm view of their trustworthiness, that they're trustworthy or not, from the way they speak. And really that goes to show that vocal inflections, the way somebody speaks, is much more important, really, than how they look, which is a strange thing, but generally the two things go together. So yeah, it's the point of all of that is we very quickly, without realizing it, form an impression of somebody that we meet, whether it's a job interview, whether it's a date, whether it's a new friend being introduced. The brain is concocting an opinion of that person. Strangely, they often, the majority of times, they are a pretty sound impression. We can change our opinions, our impressions of somebody, but we're a bit more reluctant, apparently, to do that. Because we believe in our ability to judge somebody at the outset. So it leads on to what sort of things can we do in various situations to give a good impression. And I guess the first one, if we think of a job interview or a date or all sorts of things, it's going to be how we dress. It's going to be the clothes we wear, isn't it? We can give a good impression, hopefully. And I guess any of us, we all know that if we're going to a wedding or a funeral or anything else, an interview or a date, we feel we're going to dress accordingly, appropriate to that situation, which I guess we do try to do. Just one small example that comes to mind on that. I used to watch, probably, 5, 6, 7 years ago now, Hugh Laurie, one of our actors, he played a character in an American hospital. I don't know whether you saw it, Dr. Gregory House.
It's a House.
Did you watch House at all? That to me was probably singularly the most brilliant series. I don't think it's on Netflix, but I think I've got most of the seasons on DVD, which I plan to watch again, as I have seen it all through. But it was quite brilliant. But the point I want to make is he always had, he was obviously a clearly intelligent doctor, brilliant in his diagnosis.
Show go with a bang and fund the aim of everything cost us and fund the aim of
brilliant series. I don't think it's on Netflix, but I mean, I think I've got most of the seasons on DVD, which I plan to watch again, as I have seen it all through. But it was quite brilliant. But the point I want to make is he always had, he was obviously a clearly intelligent doctor, brilliant in his diagnoses, and it was a great series. But he always said outlandish things which landed him in trouble and so on. But he was usually proved right. And throughout the series, all of the seasons, he made this point that everybody lies. And that was kind of a mantra. Everybody lies. And I actually thought when it came to mind a minute ago, that will make a very good subject for another afternoon podcast, this idea that everybody lies. And when not necessarily meaning, and it does mean lying, barefaced lying with what we say sometimes, but it also means perhaps trying to pretend we're something we're not, and all that, what images we want to put on to give a good impression is kind of, perhaps lying is too strong. It may be disingenuous. It may be just something we're trying to do for not nefarious purposes, not for wrong reasons. But anyway, one thing that, so he said everybody lies. And one thing he did say was always stuck with me. He says, the eyes can mislead, the smile can lie, but the shoes always tell the truth. And I actually always thought that was quite brilliant, because you can see what it's trying to say, that actually you can be well dressed, well scrubbed up, but if your shoes don't really match or are good enough, it can destroy the impression. So what he always felt was that someone who wears good quality, expensive shoes is a good person, which is probably ridiculous to say it like that. But he was saying the importance of shoes. And something I've always liked, I don't know whether I first said it or whether it's someone else, but the idea that we should all have a very good quality pair of shoes and a very good quality bed, because if we're not in one, we're in the other. And I think there's obviously a lot of truth about that. It's good to have quality things that really matter to us. So shoes, I think, are very much part of and I think shoes actually have always been a bit of a fascination for me as a cultural thing in our society. And actually one of my songs, now I think about it, Hell for Leather, sort of touches on this idea of shoes and all the different types of shoes which reflect a particular fashion at a particular time. Some go through fashion, they're not really fashionable or otherwise, but shoes, what humans wear, is quite something. And it's actually quite poignant to see a lot of the shoes dragged out of the Titanic, since they found that under the sea. And they
Of our gang will make the show go with a bang and fund the aim of everything past us and fund the